सेव किया था ना?
मैं सिर्फ इसलिए गया था क्योंकि उसने मुझे कॉल किया, that's it. But listen तो.
Save it for someone else.
जिंदगी में सेव करना जरूरी है, मगर जब बात पैसों की हो, सिर्फ सेविंग से काम नहीं चलेगा। इक्विटी म्यूचुअल फंड्स में इन्वेस्ट कीजिए और अपने सेविंग्स को आगे बढ़ने का मौका दीजिए।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
Modi government has done something truly unusual, something that can be put in the category of rarest of rare by invoking Article 355 of the Constitution. In Manipur, a state run by its own party, a state run by a state government, elected state government of the BJP itself with a majority. Now, first of all, a central government invoking Article 355 of the Constitution, which actually empowers the center to take charge of law and order in a state. That is unusual. In fact, I've been searching and my colleagues have been searching, and maybe we are confused. So if one of you knows better, please let us know. But we've not been able to find a standalone example of the central government invoking this article of the Constitution in a state in the country which has a functioning elected government. It is a precursor to the employment of Article 356. That is 355, failure of law and order, right? Order is not maintained, order is broken, state government can't control it. So Article 355, central government takes over law and order and then dismisses the state government. That is not likely to happen for obvious reasons, because it's the BJP's own government. So no central government would dismiss its own party's government. What they've done is, for now, we don't know what will happen tomorrow. It all depends on how things go in Manipur. But as things stand, it looks like it will be the standalone use of 355. So you have an elected government under the constitutional scheme of things. Law and order is a state responsibility, but by using this rarely used provision, if at all it's ever been used, I don't want to call it unprecedented because we are a complex country, over 70 years, it's possible that something like this might have happened. But in my recollection, I'm not finding anything. Researching, I'm not finding anything. My colleague, Bhadra Sinha, who heads our legal section, she's checked out, at least on the phone with some people. We can't find any examples of a standalone use of Article 355. Now, what does the article say? I will just read out the exact quote, the exact language of the article from our Constitution. It says, it's a duty, the article defines the duty of the Union to protect states against external aggression and internal disturbance. It shall be the duty of the Union to protect every state against external aggression and internal disturbance, and to ensure that the government of every state is carried on in accordance with provisions of the Constitution. Now, it's been rarely used, but it's been used, if at all, to justify the use of Article 356, the next state. Why would a central government do it against their own party's government? So first of all, unlikely that they'll dismiss the government, but the fact that they've had to use this drastic provision of the Constitution in Manipur tells you how grave the situation is. And how grave the situation is, you can see in the visuals that have been running on your screens, and you can also see some as I talk on your screen now. So there are trucks filled with young people flaunting automatic rifles, right? AK-47s and stuff like that. These claim to be volunteers or quote-unquote insurgents or whatever, or fighters of the Kuki insurgent organizations. Kukis are a bunch of tribes. Kukis are a well-known tribe, members of which are found in most states of the Northeast. In fact, in all states of the Northeast except in Arunachal Pradesh. All states of the Northeast and Myanmar as well. They are also very diverse tribes. There is a whole bunch of Kuki tribes, so it depends on how you count them. If you collect all the tribes, then you might say Kukis would be about 10% of Manipur's population. Manipur's population is not that much. The population is about 34 lakhs. That's an estimate because the population was 28.55 lakhs in the 2011 census. So Kukis may be at the most a couple of lakh people, maybe less, maybe 3 lakh people. Again, if I combine all the tribes and sub-tribes, which some people may call Kuki, some people may not. But the Kuki organizations have also been indulging in insurgent activity for some time. In 2005, though, they signed a suspension of operations agreement with the army. Then they formalized it with Manmohan Singh government. Lately, they've been very restless, and that's why on 10th of March, Manipur government had suspended. They had withdrawn that suspension of operations, saying that, look, now we reserve the right to act against you. So cookie tribals are the ones who are leading a lot of the action, quote unquote, action on the ground. You've seen buildings being burned. You've seen the story of an MLA, mobs going into an MLA's house, nearly lynching him. Hope he recovers fast. These are really terrible, terrible pictures coming out of Manipur, out of Imphal. Imphal is the capital of Manipur. Again, if you want to understand Manipur, you have to understand several things first. First of all, you have to understand demographics. Demography of Manipur, very important. Geography of Manipur, right? And a little bit of history, because unless you do that, you cannot understand what's going on. Nor can we understand why should we bother about Manipur. 53% of the population is Methi. Now, these are plains people. They live in the valley. They are not tribal. They don't get benefits of reservation. Also, other protections that tribal communities get in terms of outsiders not being able to do businesses there, protections for their language, protection for their culture, etc. Tribal districts of Manipur have all those protections. But the Methis don't. Now, Methis have been agitating to get tribal status. They say all the people who live in the mountains, tribal people, they get the benefit of being scheduled tribe, of reservations in jobs, in admissions, but also protections for their culture, their land, their language, etc. We are being denied that. We are similar people, we are equally backward people, and we also need protection. So they've been campaigning for it for a long time. Now, that did not happen all this while, because as I understand that when this started, in the late 40s, early 50s, there were also many among Methis, particularly Methi elites, who said, look, why should we be scheduled tribes? We are more developed people already, more developed compared to the tribals. So why should we? They were too proud to seek the tribal status. But as tribals have grown, as tribals have become more developed, and they are getting jobs all over the country, you can find them all over the country, there is a greater demand, a stronger demand among the Methis to also get tribal status. Now, some Methi petitioners went to Manipur High Court. They went to Manipur High Court asking the High Court to instruct or give directions to the state government to make a pitch with the central government, particularly the Ministry of Tribal Welfare Affairs in New Delhi, to get scheduled tribe status for the Methis. On 27th of March, a single judge bench of Manipur High Court gave those instructions to Manipur government and also said, do this within 4 weeks. Now, first of all, I find it odd as to why should a High Court have given such instructions to a state government? Is it within the High Court's remit? And it's possible that this will be set aside by the Supreme Court. But you know what? This has now become a big political issue because tribals are angry. Tribals of Manipur are angry, and they are the ones protesting. And they are saying, if the majority community, which is mostly Hindu and Muslim, mostly Hindu, a few Muslim, but mostly Hindu, if they also get the scheduled tribe status, then the opportunity which is reserved for us tribals will go to them also. And these people, in any case, are more developed. Their language is already a part of the 8th schedule. So Manipuri language is formally recognized as a language nationally. So they have these protections already. They are the elites. They rule the state. They have the political power. Why do they deserve the scheduled tribe status? And if they get that status, we'll have to share the reservation pie with them. So the tribals will not be happy if this goes forward. They'll be angry. And how angry they are, you can see right now in the trouble that has broken out. The Methis, on the other hand, now that the High Court has given this instruction, if tomorrow the Supreme Court were to set it aside, or if the center were to lean on the state government not to follow the High Court's orders or do anything, then the Methis are going to be unhappy. So overall, this has now become a perfect storm in the state of Manipur, in the tiny state of Manipur, tiny, beautiful, diverse state of Manipur with a population of less than 35 lakh. If you look at the demographics of Manipur, it's fascinating. 53%, about 53 to 54%. Again, these are not precise counts also because all we have to rely on is the 2011 census. So about 53 to 54%, some people say less. There are many arguments. Some people say maybe it's now become 51 or 49 because tribal population is growing faster than Methi population, but I would say let's go by the figures that we have and extrapolate them. So 53 to 54% of the population is Methi, of the Methi stock. So ethnic Methis are mostly Hindus who live in the valley. So if you look at Manipur, again look at the map of Manipur. Manipur is a sizable state. It's not a small state. Geographically, it's a sizable state. Only about 10% or little over 10% of it is the Imphal Valley. That's where, it's in that valley that nearly 60% of the population lives, right? In the remaining 90% area, which is mountainous and which has far-flung hamlets and small and lots of villages and very small towns, if at all. That is where about 40% of the population lives. That population that lives in the mountains is almost entirely tribal. The population that lives in the valley is predominantly non-tribal, which means Methis. So Methis are about 53-54%. Methis are also politically the most powerful, the most important. Most chief ministers in Manipur, for example, are Methi. Of the 60 MLAs in Manipur Assembly, about 40 tend to be Methis, 20 tribal. So it also so happens that for the past 20 years or 30 years or so, I would say, going back to 30 years, tribals have also felt a greater sense of loss of power because in the past, particularly in the Congress era, tribals did become chief ministers of the state. For example, Rishang Kishing, who was Congress party stalwart in the Northeast, he was a tribal. He was a Tangkhul tribal from Ukhrul. Tangkhul, by the way, is the same tribe from which Thongaleng Moiba comes, the founder and leader of National Socialist Council of Nagaland, the only Naga insurgent group of any credible size, which is still negotiating with Government of India and which still commands some authority, not just in the Naga districts of Manipur, but in Nagaland as well. So Tangkhul Nagas would be just over 2 lakhs in a total population of about 33 to 35 lakhs in Manipur. It is they who've had chief ministers in Manipur earlier, in Imphal earlier. That loss of power by the tribals has been accentuated over the past couple of decades and particularly so after the rise of the BJP. Now, Methis have the political power, 54% Methis, and then if you look at the tribals, there are 35 distinct tribes in Manipur. Once again, and you will see the list on your screens, and once again, there will be disputes and arguments about which tribe belongs to which larger community or which larger group. Is this part of the larger Naga group? In Manipur, in fact, you will find funny definitions or odd definitions like any Naga tribes, any Kuki tribes, like that, any Mizo tribes, right? Because these are sub-tribes. Each one is distinctive, but you can put them in some groupings. But once again, there are disputes and arguments about which groupings does each one go into. So you see these 35 tribes. Of these 35 tribes, broadly, if about 53% are Methis, Methis are mostly Hindus, but not all Hindus. 53% Methis, but about 8.5% of Manipur's population is also Muslim. Who are these Muslims? These are also Methis. These are also of Methi stock, but they are Muslim. They are mostly Sunni Muslims of the Hanafi order. They also have a local description, a local name. They are called Methi Pangals. Pangal, as I understand, at least from the times when I used to travel in those parts, which was a long time back, between 1981 and 83, when I covered the Northeast, they are called Methi Pangals, and Pangal is a kind of something that developed out of the word Bengal, because these populations also became Muslim under Bengali influence. So that is what the belief and that is what the history is. So Methis 53%, tribals are about 40%. The total population, 24% are the various Naga tribes and sub-tribes, and 16% are the various Mizo tribes. Now you can call them Mizo tribes, Kukis are also part of that, or you can call them Kuki, Mizo, Chin tribes. You can call them Zomi tribes, but for simplicity, we call them Chin, Kuki, Mizo tribes. Once again, look at the religious split in Manipur. It's a dead heat. 41% Hindu, that's almost all Methi. 41% Christian, right? That's almost all tribal. About 8.5% or so Muslim, then you will say, who are the remaining 10%? Now, I told you, the fascinating thing about Manipur is its demographics. And unless you understand the demographics of a small state in terms of population, a small but vital and fascinating state, you cannot understand that state because you cannot apply any formula. So, if you say 41% Hindu, 41% Christian, that is 82, about 8% Muslim, about 90, who are the rest? Who are the remaining 10%? So if you look at the remaining 10%, of that, another 8% or so, or about 7.5 to 8%, is a distinctive community called Methi Sanamahis. Now, Methi Sanamahis, it's a large population, about 8% of the total population of Manipur. That's almost 2.5 lakh people. Methi Sanamahis are the pre-Hindu Methis. So Methis of Manipur formally became Hindu in 1704. When their ruler then, his name then was Charai Rongba, he converted and he gave himself or adopted a Hindu name. So King Charai Rongba became Pitambar Singh. That is when he formally became Hindu and most of the population also became Hindu. Before that, population followed a way of worship called Sanamahism, which is the worship of the sun, worship of ancestors, worship of other such objects, worship even of forest groves. So there would be many who would today say that, look, what's the difference between this and Hinduism? In Hinduism also, it's polytheistic. You can worship anybody or any object. Similarly, Sanamahism is also polytheistic. But in any case, they are now distinctive. They see themselves as a distinctive faith. Manipur Assembly and Manipur government in the past have passed orders and passed resolutions saying that this is a distinctive faith. They've also been given a special code. So in censuses, etc., they can be listed as a small minority as well. So it is in this complexity, in this complex situation that this trouble is broken out. And so difficult has this situation begun because Manipur has a history of many insurgencies. It has had a history of tribal insurgencies. It has a history of Methi insurgencies. In fact, the strongest insurgency in Manipur, if at all, was by a group called PLA, People's Liberation Army. That was a Methi insurgency. And that was led by a man called N. Bisheshwar Singh, Namirakpam Bisheshwar Singh. There was another group, Methi group, called Prepak, People's Revolutionary Party of Kanglipak. Now, Kanglipak is the ancient Manipuri name or the original Manipuri name for Manipuri language name or Methi name for the state of Manipur. So, Prepak wanted to restore the old original entity of Manipur as an independent state, and PLA, on the other hand, PLA, the founder and the main cadres of PLA were trained by the Chinese in Tibet and Myanmar and in what used to be East Pakistan then. They wanted to create a revolutionary, independent, sovereign state of Manipur. These were two strong insurgencies. And this while in the mountains, most hill tribes had their own groups. So the Nagas, there are two major Naga groups, the Tangkhuls and the Maos of Senapati district. Most of them, Tangkhuls in particular, they were caught up with the Naga insurgency of the neighboring Nagaland. Whereas some of the Mizo groups and Kuki groups, they formed their own insurgent groups. There was no shortage of weapons there because any amount of weapons can come in from Myanmar. And also there is a lot of drug cultivation, poppy cultivation. There is a lot of drug running. So between drug running, gun running, etc., it's very easy to set up an insurgent group of a couple of hundred people. In fact, it doesn't even take a couple of hundred people. Maybe a few scores of people can also create quite a mayhem. We had seen in 2021, November 2021, totally non-entity insurgent groups, each one having not more than 30, 40, 50 followers. They had carried out an ambush in which a commandant of the Assam Rifles was killed along with others in his convoy.